The blockbuster Gladiator 2 just released this weekend, and here are my initial thoughts on the film. Now, I'm not a film critic or anything like that, but I am a huge fan of the very first Gladiator. In fact, it is what I often refer to as my favorite movie of all time, so I had low expectations actually going into this movie because I think there are certain movies like something like Forrest Gump that just don't need a sequel, and I think Gladiator was one that didn't need a sequel. So I went in with low expectations. I actually didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't see any of the spoilers. So for me, everything was brand new. The only thing I knew was that it centered around Lucius, and obviously he's a character from the first movie. And I didn't know any of the twist or anything like that going into this movie. So here are my initial thoughts just upon one viewing, and let's dive in. So if you just want to know my overall rating of the movie, I'll just go ahead and give that to you, and then I'll explain why. So my rating out of 10 was an 8 out of 10. So I would have given the first Gladiator, obviously, a 10 out of 10. In my opinion, it's the best. But I would give this an 8 out of 10. Honestly, I was surprised, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I had no expectations going in, which is honestly how I feel like I should go into every movie moving forward, because honestly, going in with low expectations, it can only exceed your expectations. So I feel like that's the way to do it. So yeah, I actually gave it an 8 out of 10, and I expected to maybe come out with like a 5, 6, or 7 out of 10. So it exceeded my expectations, and I was very pleased with that. And side note, this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this video. With that said, moving forward, the first thing that I really liked was the acting. I actually thought all the actors did a really good job. I thought that the guys that played the emperors were psychotic and wild, and that just added this kind of tension to the whole thing. And Denzel Washington was this conniving, like very intelligent character, and I just had no clue where he was gonna be in this movie at all. I knew he was gonna be in it, but I had no clue that he would end up being like the main villain of the entire film. So that was really cool. That was kind of a shock to me. I had no clue who Pedro Pascal was gonna be, and I loved his character. He was basically like the modern rendition of Maximus. Like, I felt like he was more like Maximus than Lucius was. So the acting was great. I really enjoyed everyone's performance. There wasn't really anyone that I was just like, so I really enjoyed it. I was very immersed in that way. I thought the set pieces, the makeup, all that sort of stuff really put me into that world, and I thought they did an excellent job. And so that was really cool. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like too much CGI or something like that. You know how modern movies do it, and you just don't feel like you're there. So apparently I've heard that they made a lot of the set pieces, and a lot of it was like filmed live and practical and stuff. So that was really cool. And some of the fights were just really cool. Like, the fact that they filled up the Coliseum with water and had water battles and stuff, I actually knew about that, and that still kind of blows my mind that they did that, but that's pretty cool, and that's pretty wild. And then also the fact that they use certain animals like rhinos, like I had no clue that they actually used them in battle. And it's cool from a movie perspective, like it sucks in real life that they did that, but like it's kind of crazy that they did that. Like, it's wild. Like, I just can't imagine like rhinos and things like that being in an arena and they were fighting with them. That's pretty wild. But so I really loved all the action, all the fight sequences. There was nothing that just really looked cheesy or anything like that to me, so it really put me into that world again. And the thing that I probably loved the most about it was I thought I knew where the movie was going. I thought it was going to end up being Lucius and Acacius, Pedro Pascal's character, in the end just fighting like the first movie. I thought it was going to be those two fighting in the arena and that would be it. So when they fought like halfway through the film, and Lucius like comes back to himself and ends up actually liking his character and not killing him, I was like, whoa, okay, I did not see this one coming. And so that was a really pleasant surprise. And then the fact that the story from there just kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And you just had this like new villain after new villain, which I love when stories do that. Like, Acacius is like the first villain that you see and you're like, that's the guy we want to go for. Like, he is the main villain, but it wasn't. And then you see the emperors and you're like, those are the guys. And then all along, it was the guy hiding in plain sight, Denzel Washington's character. And to me, that is what makes a story so amazing, is when it unfolds and I can't really predict what's going to happen. And so I really like that about this story. And that's probably the primary reason why I gave this an 8 out of 10, because I was just so enveloped into the story and didn't know what was going to happen. And I was very intrigued. So I really enjoyed it from that perspective. Now, here are some of the downsides. I think if they would have really nailed these things, it probably would have been more like a 10 out of 10 in my mind. The first thing is Lucius's love interest at the beginning. She dies, which was kind of predictable. As soon as I saw her, I knew she was going to die. I didn't think she would be a warrior, so that was a cool twist. But the fact that she died didn't surprise me, but it was the fact that I just honestly didn't care. Like, we had like 2 minutes with her, and we saw their like love a little bit in some of the dialogue and then exchanging the rings and stuff like that. But literally, I just literally didn't care at all. Like, for some reason in the first Gladiator, you really didn't see his wife at all, like just in flashbacks and stuff like that. But I just really cared, and I was really devastated when you found out that she died, and his son as well. But in this one, like, it just didn't grasp at my heartstrings. And so I think if they would have taken like maybe another 5 minutes or something and just really told their story a little bit more, or really made me just really intrigued by that and really just hope that she would live and just really care about those characters together, I think that would have really made a huge difference. And then the second thing that I had an issue with is whenever Lucilla, the main character that like united Gladiator 1 and Gladiator 2, whenever she dies at the end, she gets shot with an arrow in front of him, and then it's kind of just like, okay, moving on to the next scene. Like, we didn't have any time to process this, and he didn't have it. I mean, it almost didn't even show him, like, he didn't even seem to care that much. He was like, that sucks. I'm gonna go after him, But it felt like he went more after Denzel Washington's character just because he was supposed to, and that was the bad guy, rather than he just killed his mom. Like, it just felt like there was no emotional connection, and there wasn't like that sweet ending that I would have loved to seen, where it was just like I would be in tears just seeing her die. I was shocked whenever she got shot and she died, but it just like transitioned to the next scene just like that, and I just didn't feel like any closure on that. I didn't feel like I was allowed to feel sad for long enough, and didn't feel like those characters felt sad in their own relationship right there. And I would have liked to seen them like rekindle that relationship a little bit better, and for that kill to just be like devastating to him, and then he like rides off after Denzel Washington's character and just like has to kill him. The two deaths that really sparked Lucius's character and his whole story just didn't really hit me that hard. I mean, when Pedro Pascal's character died, that hit me harder, and that made more sense because we had a little bit more time to process that and feel what Lucius was feeling. But I just didn't feel like we got that with the two most important women in his life. And I wish we would have had that. And I think if we would have got those two things, for me, the story would have been more like a 10 out of 10. But because we rushed past that, I have to give it more like an 8 out of 10. But having said that, I did overall really enjoy this movie. And like I said, it wasn't as good as the first one in my opinion. I didn't expect it to be, but it did exceed my expectations, and I had a great time with it. And if you're thinking about seeing it, I definitely recommend it. It's very entertaining. It's a lot of fun. If you just like seeing ancient Rome and gladiator sequences and stuff like that, just that in itself is a lot of fun to watch. So I would definitely recommend watching this movie. And if you like this kind of content, let me know. This is the first review I've ever done. I just felt like I had to because I love Gladiator so much. And maybe I'll make some more in the future. Who knows? But thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.